Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else in between, of course, all my they, them royalty as well. I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. This is the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. A little endeavor I have, a get rich quick, very slowly scheme that I have, that I'm evolving as this podcast goes along. I am vamping so hard to try and get these tweets out so that we can get started on the actual premise and objective of the show that I have every single week. And I'm going to be honest with you, we've been drifting further away from the, I think today we might be a little bit better, but I did write way too many pages of notes on Falcons Colts, but we'll get to that when we get to it, right? We have not done, I said, I specifically went out of my way and I did a bunch of weird stuff earlier today to try and mitigate some of the tangents that go on during the show. I also changed up how my page looks of notes so that it's in dark mode, so hopefully it doesn't affect my camera as much. I had a lot of segments where portions of the show where I got out of focus. Anyway, tweets are sent, so now I can actually focus using my brain cells to talk about this show. I'm Ashton Lewis. If you guys don't know, first of all, thank you for showing up. Apparently, more and more people keep showing up. So more people are listening to the podcast on a regular basis. I really hope it's not connected to the fact that I do this show at 3 o'clock in the morning. But more and more people are listening to the podcast. We actually got a new subscriber. We actually got 3 new subscribers in the last over the last 2 episodes, which is pretty dope because I spent a long time getting to like 30 subscribers, and we've gotten 6 since the NFL season started, and we're in week 10. I know it's difficult at all times to be the person that is gaining subscribers in general because there's just so many people that you could be paying attention to, and yet somehow, some way, you chose to pay attention to me, and I appreciate that. Although I'm working on my confidence in terms of like talking about the show with good spirits. It makes perfect sense why you're here. You know, we're doing a great show. I'm having a great time, and we're talking about every single play that happened in week 10 in the NFL season. I don't think there's too many other podcasts that are doing that because a good chunk of the podcast have already come out. It is Friday morning, which means that week 11 is technically already started, because for some people, you actually think that Thursday Night Football counts. And I know there's a lot of teams in the NFL that wish that Thursday Night Football didn't count. Me being one of them. Once again, I am a big proponent of Thursday Night Football should never be a divisional game. You should never play international divisional games. You should never play. I'm okay with Monday Night Football divisional games, and I'm okay with Sunday Night Football divisional games. But anything that puts you under duress when it comes to like divisional games, knowing how much money is on the line in the playoffs, and how divisional games really do influence who does and does not make the playoffs, I don't think we should. I think those should be the games that are like off limits. But you should be playing like cross divisional or cross conference matchups at the international slots. But whatever, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. As some of you may or may not know, there's a lot of returning viewers, so I have to explain this less and less, but I will continue to explain it. My goal is to explain and talk about every single game that happened in week 10 of the NFL football season in 1 hour or less. I start the timer myself personally. It used to start when the theme song started playing. I thought that was a little outlandish. We fixed it up a little bit. We break everything down into 4 different categories. Category number 1 is Snooze Fest, which are the games that honestly I had a tough time getting through them this week. There's a couple of games that are in here that's kind of disappointing, but that's just how the game goes. Sometimes teams show up, they put out a dud, they don't have a good time, they have a bad game plan. Also, there's just like massive talent gaps in terms of like approach to football, because right now we're in a time of change in football where certain teams are still playing the older style of football where you try to get as many wide receivers on the field as possible. And now there are teams who are entering into the 13 personnel era of football, which I think is like the next wave, where you don't value necessarily the immense speed of wide receivers. You value size, because size can win a lot of matchups, including contested catches, which is a situation that a lot of inexperienced and experienced quarterbacks find themselves in. Not everybody's going to throw a perfect ball, but when the DB is 5'8" and your wide receiver is 6'4", or your tight end 6'4", it does make it a lot easier for you to catch footballs. Moving on. We got Snooze Fest, we got Heartbreakers, which are the games that structurally break people's hearts either the fandom's heart, my heart, or you can sometimes we'll get to that point during the season. It's week 10. You break the hearts of the players on the field, and you can see it a little bit, which is always a little disappointing. But it'll get worse as the season goes on for some teams, because there are teams that are spiraling out of control very quickly because the trade deadline just happened. And the way we're going to cover the trade deadline is talking about who made trades at the top of each one of these games. The other category is oh my. Shout out to Leonard Takei, one of the greatest of all time. But the iconic line there, oh my, is one of the games that has like an interesting result that's more related to not necessarily what the final score was, but how you got to the final score. And then the last category, these are the cream of the crop games. These are the games that I fervently believe in my heart of hearts create football fans. And for the first time, and I want to say ever in the history of this is what we're here for, there's a game that was in an interesting time slot that I don't think has ever been featured, and this is what we're here for. We'll get to that when we get to it, but let's take it from the top, shall we? Let's talk about Snooze Fest games. I got them organized in a different way than my notes are set up, but it's okay because it shouldn't take too long for me to power through these. We have had 6-7 minutes elapsing on the clock, so in an hour and 7 minutes, this show should be over. We'll find out. So the first game on this list is Seahawks versus Cardinals, and I'm about transparency. I'm about honesty about how I watch the games. You know what I mean? I watch a bunch of games prior to recording this podcast. Like on the day of the actual podcast recording, I watch like 6 games, and it kind of sucks sometimes. But I love to do this show, and I actually like to watch football. It's just a lot of football all at one time, and then sometimes it's a lot of bad football in a row because I watch them sequentially, and sometimes that means all the bad games get played at one time. Anyway, off the top here, I'm going to tell you about my experience with this game. I was at my girlfriend's apartment like I am every single Sunday. Yes, there was whiskey involved. You guys know this. That's just how it is. Just finished eating, I want to say like 3 breakfast tacos. The Texans pulled off the crazy results of their game, and it goes directly into the Seattle Seahawks game, at least the way that my TV is set up. Wink, wink, hint, hint. 44-22. I'm going to tell you this right now. The second half of this game doesn't fucking matter because in the first half of this game, it was 28-3. It was 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, and it just kept getting worse. DeMarcus Lawrence, if you probably haven't heard by now, which, you know, if you're watching this podcast, you probably haven't heard, and so my job is to tell you about it. The way that this happened is the Seattle Seahawks defense scored 2 touchdowns in the course of the 44 points that the Seahawks put up offensively, so that made Sam Darnold's job a lot easier, as we all know. It also helps when you have like the number 1 wide receiver in football on your team as well. JSN, my favorite news network, he already has... he's like the fastest Seahawk to 1,000 yards in his career, I believe is the record that he broke this past Sunday. But nonetheless, he's averaging like a crazy amount of yards per catch. I think it's like 17 yards per catch or whatever. He's cooking dudes. He's in the zone. He's yet another Ohio State wide receiver that has come to the NFL and treats it like child's play now. So that's fun for everyone. But like I said before, it was 28-0, 28-3 at like halftime of this game, and it was over. The Cardinals are not a team built to have explosive offense. They are a methodical, some would even say run-based team, but they don't have the running back to follow up with it. And, you know, it's been pretty impressive how far they've come without James Conner, because I thought as soon as James went down, it was all going to start going downhill, which... to their credit, Kyler Murray's on IR. Everybody wants Jacoby Brissett to start the games and all this kind of stuff like that. And the offense does look a little bit more explosive. It does not look explosive enough to overcome being down by 3 touchdowns almost instantaneously in an NFL football game. And that's what happened in this one. They just ran away with it. Halai, the third running back for the Seattle Seahawks, was able to go out there and finish pretty strong. K-Walk and Zach Charbonnet were also involved in there, but I think, as usual, as we all know, Mike McDonald secretly hates Kenneth Walker, and I don't understand why. He is, in fact, his best running back. He is, in fact, the Seattle Seahawks' best running back. I don't really get what the aversion to playing him is, but Mike McDonald really likes to drift away from letting Kenneth Walker cook, which maybe, just maybe, later on in the playoffs, we're going to see a lot more Kenneth Walker, which I would love, because there's been, I think the last like 3 seasons, really, he hasn't been able to finish the season or play in every single one of these games. And so far this year, with the running back rotation, he's doing just fine. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that good jazz. So we move on to our next game here. I think I'm just gonna get out of the way now. Oh, it's at the bottom. Never mind. I couldn't remember if I typed it in or not because it's at the top of my notes. But I have the Eagles and the Packers. This was Monday Night Football. This game was huge for a specific reason in the NFC, just in general. The Packers and the Eagles are like legitimate contenders to be the teams that are going to earn the bye week. As the playoffs kind of unfold a little bit, the Eagles are kind of running away with this game overall. Running away with their division overall. If you don't know, the NFC East, aka the NFC Beast, first place, it has the Eagles, who have 7 wins, right? Great. That makes them they're like in the top 4 records overall in the NFL because I want to say it's the Broncos and the Colts have 8 wins. 2 very different teams who got to the same place in very different ways. But nonetheless, the Eagles are a 7-win team. They have more wins combined together than the Eagles and the Cowboys because second place in the NFC East right now is currently in a deadlock tie with 3 wins from the Commanders and 3 wins from the Cowboys. So there's like a legit. I would love to see the numbers on it. I'm sure somebody's already calculated it. Can the Eagles clinch within can they clinch the division within like the next 3 weeks? Because the raw numbers will not work out for the Cowboys and the Commanders. Anyway, there's 7 games on the season left for most people who haven't had their bye or who do have their bye coming up or whatever. But yeah, Packers, Eagles. The way I can define this is another frustrating game for A.J. Brown. We've already, if you haven't seen it, he's gone. He was on a stream, and he said that the offense looks like, basically he was like, the offense looks like ass. And to his credit, it does. It's had moments this season where it has looked very, very good, and has a lot of moments this season where it has looked absolutely terrible. But overall, the most consistent part about the Eagles team as a whole is their defense. Their defense has taken and looks exactly like the defense that played in the Super Bowl. Speaking of which, Brandon Graham is back. Like, for real. Anyway, but yeah, Brandon Graham is back on the edge. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles franchise as a whole, which is saying a lot because there's a lot of good defensive players who will come through there. But yeah, overall, the Eagles are a defensive-minded front forward team. They do have a quarterback who is capable of passing the ball pretty well. On the other hand, that quarterback tends to pass the ball really well to Devonta Smith, which is not A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown is fully aware of that every single time he's out there on the field. It seems... I'm not even going to say that, man, because I know that they're double. I know there has to be some combination of like double coverage or bracketing on A.J. Brown pretty much every single time he's out there on the field. Obviously, this is eerily reminiscent of some of the stuff that we saw from Jalen Hurts when he was at Alabama initially that led to him transferring to Oklahoma. I will also point this out. It is kind of crazy to be a wide receiver. Well, it's not crazy. It's not crazy for a wide receiver. It's kind of crazy to be on a team that is has scored 40 points multiple times this season, but at the same time is currently like first place in the NFC or competing for first place in the NFC and say that the offense is ass. This is not true. Overall, it's inconsistent for sure. It's not ass. We've actually in the last couple of weeks we've been seeing Saquon Barkley kind of cook back. He's coming back, kind of revive. Like him and Derrick Henry are kind of bouncing back from the recoil that comes from being a running back that ran for 2,000 yards last season. You know what I mean? It takes a lot out of you. Every team is focused in on you. Every team is studying every single run fit that they can possibly hit. They've got different techniques. A lot of teams are starting to, when in Derrick Henry's case, I know we're not talking about the Ravens right now, but in Derrick Henry's case, they use the technique that the Bengals use, which is to send an edge defender, which is typically a DB, to basically run behind Derrick Henry and trip him up from behind before he can even start running. So that happens. Mike Hilton made a lot of money doing that for the Bengals, but no longer the case. It was Eli Apple that did that. Anyway, this game, extremely boring. a lot of Josh Jacobs, a lot of short yardage throws from the Green Bay Packers, and it feels like as the season has gone on, they started off as this team that was kind of moving the ball pretty easily, and every opponent they faced, including the Philadelphia Eagles, are one of the best defenses in the league overall. It's one of the better teams that the Packers have faced this season. They've slowly been kind of regressing back into this offense that is all about short yardage stuff. And Christian Watson comes back from his injury. And then they start getting some more explosive plays down the field. And then we start having issues with the consistency of the wide receivers down the field. Like Marcus Golden didn't play in this game, and that was a huge deal for the Packers overall because Marcus does a really good job of leading safeties towards his direction, and which helps Christian Watson get more open further down the field. Not having Tucker Kraft has clearly affected Jordan Love, and he's still trying to find, the person that's going to fill that void, you know what I mean? And I think it's okay to have games where you struggle. It just sucks that it's happening at this pivotal point during the season for them overall. Obviously, they're in a really competitive division. The NFC North is basically in a deadlock. First and second place are one game apart from each other, and there's two teams tied for second place. But yeah, that it's tough overall to be the Packers right now in this situation where you have the defense that can go out there and do their thing. And that's another part of this too. I think a lot of people are underestimating and undervaluing the fact that the Packers and the Eagles, when it comes to pass coverage, two of the best teams in the league. And then two, when it comes to run coverage as well, they do a fantastic job up front. And that's why this score is the way it is. This is a result. We already saw this Philadelphia Eagles team a couple of months removed from the Super Bowl and what they did to Patrick Mahomes, right? We've seen this Packers defense pack up a bunch of different teams throughout the course of this season. And so to sit here and think that they were going to show up and play each other on Monday Night Football and light it up is kind of absurd. On a certain level. It's okay for defense to be good, guys. I know everybody's focused on fantasy and they're focused on the prop bets and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it is okay for defense to be good and for defense to win the day if you were talking about like the actual football that's on the field. Now, the prop bet stuff, I totally understand why you'd be frustrated because you've been promised a certain thing about Josh Jacobs and it feels like the Packers aren't necessarily delivering. Anyway, moving on, that's kind of what happens in this one, man. This game basically comes down to like the last three possessions. The Eagles finally get a drive to go off, and then all of a sudden the Packers can play offense again. It's kind of weird, but they go without one of their key wide receivers, and it shows big time because they go back-to-back weeks losing a key part of their offense, and it makes sense that it would stifle their ability to continue doing what they were doing before. So, no surprise there, but final score in this one, this game was boring as hell. 10-7, great defensive battle. The Eagles come out in another close one on top. They've only gotten burned one time so far in a close game, and it was when they played the Broncos. Other than that, every time the game is close, they've usually come out on top in that one too. Moving on, Rams, 49ers. This game was interesting in a lot of different ways, but it was a snooze fest because the Rams essentially scored on every single one of their offensive possessions except two, if I'm not mistaken, off the top. This game does go sideways almost immediately for the 49ers. A lot of the 49ers secondary is filled with younger players. They have Yamador Lenore, who's probably like the most veteran guy that's in the secondary for him. Everybody else is relatively new overall. And they really struggled to cover Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. That actually wasn't like the biggest problem for them. It was the struggling to cover Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, and then also not being able to stop the run, and then also not being able to cover tight ends off of play action. That's what really did them in. The 49ers defense gave up 21 points in the first quarter of this game, and as you guys all know, most NFL teams cannot come back from being down 21 points against a good team in the NFL like the LA Rams. And I will say it's important to note what happens after they get down 21-0 in this game. They struggled to decipher the Rams' play action vast majority of the game. Kyron Williams in the first quarter had 43 yards. 43 yards in the first quarter of this game, and I think that tells you everything you need to know about what kind of day it was for the 49ers on defense up front. It really threw out the D-line. It caused a lot of hesitation. There were some guys who were questionable about when they were getting penetration, whether or not it was a setup for a screen, whether or not it was a setup to try and throw it to a tight end, whether or not it was actually a run play and they just missed Kyron Williams running past him because he is smaller than everybody else on the field. It's an interesting combination of things that led to almost a non-existent pass rush for the 49ers, and we already know that they have issues up front when it comes to getting to the passer because of all the injuries they've picked up along the way, and the kind of injuries they picked up, those guys are not coming back, which is always tough, because there's a difference between, like, this guy's hurt for a couple weeks, like you talk about with the George Kittle situation, right? This guy's hurt for a couple weeks with his hamstring, and they get to find out if these two younger tight ends on their team are going to be contributors or if they're going to be sitting on the sideline. But anyway, that to the side. It really threw out the defensive line for the 49ers every single time the ball got snapped, and it bought more time for Matthew Stafford. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, Matthew Stafford, quite good at football. More time is bad for the defense that he is playing against, which is the San Francisco 49ers, and he tore them up. And then you add in the stuff with the tight ends. The tight ends were running play action stuff. They were setting up as blockers in the direction of the play action. So if they were faking a run to the right and then Matthew Stafford was rolling out to his left, they were faking the run as if they were lead blockers and then leaking out across to run drag routes as the linebackers were kind of getting taken out by offensive linemen further up the field. And then they were running wide open most of the time because they were going across the formation. So it either means that a linebacker has to change direction like almost instantaneously, or they have to pass the offensive pass catcher on, and it's hard to figure out whether or not it's a pass or a run in a lot of situations when it's happening that quickly, which is why Sean McVay is a Super Bowl champion and I'm not. Anyway, the Rams defense had a pretty obvious and clear plan in this one, and I think it's the plan that pretty much every team selects to do when they go up against the 49ers. You take out Christian McCaffrey and you try and get McCorkle Jones to beat you. And I'll say this much, it has backfired on a lot of teams so far this season. It did not backfire versus the Rams because they had the early offensive lead. They were setting a pace that Mac Jones and the 49ers just couldn't match early on because a lot of the 49ers' success comes later in a good chunk of the games they played this season because they do need to establish the run. They just don't establish the run as quickly as the Rams. That may be like a talent issue in terms of like the offensive line overall, but for the most part, Mac Jones actually was dealing throughout the course of this game. It just wasn't huge explosive plays down the field. He was killing them over the middle because they were leaving it open on purpose, thinking that he couldn't figure out where to get to it because of how good their pass rush was. But Mac was doing like an amazing job with Jawan Jennings, killing the Rams over the middle to the point where they had to adjust their defense to cover the spot that he threw to like 3 times in a row later in the half of this game. They believed in their ability to stop Mac Jones. That happened throughout the course of this game, and they're struggling big time, right? Because they're down 21-0 and they're trying to figure out how to get back into the game. And they get a field goal at one point. They get a drive right before halftime, and they kind of get it clicking. Like it starts running a little bit. They get to the outside of the Rams 40-yard line after starting deep in their own territory, and then the drive kind of fizzles out. But it does set up the drive that results in a touchdown coming out of halftime. They had Brian Robinson Jr. in a good mix with Christian McCaffrey because, everybody thinks that Christian McCaffrey is like the number one target at all times. And to their credit, he is. You stop Christian McCaffrey, you stop a lot of parts of the 49ers offense. But Brian Robinson Jr. as the backup running back has looked amazing so far this season. And we've had these moments throughout the course of the year. Last week they even did this. They even did this versus the Texans where, Christian McCaffrey, you see him a bunch in the first half, and then you see Brian Robinson Jr., who's a bigger guy, who is harder to take down, who hits people harder. And every time I see him do something crazy, like he's been amazing every single time he's touched the ball this season so far. It makes me wonder, do like the Commanders really regret that trade? Because they're still kind of struggling to run the ball consistently, but we'll talk about them a little bit later on. Sean McVay knows the 49ers so well. He basically would set up personnel to draw out 3 linebacker defenses. So basically, like, it actually isn't even base defense anymore because it was base defense 10 years ago to have 3 linebackers on the field. But base defense now is usually nickel in the NFL. And so they're going to, I guess you call it like a sub package when you have 3 linebackers out and you're just in regular like cover 2 or just regular formation, I guess. See, I don't even know what when you don't call it base, I don't even know what it's called. But yeah, he draws them out. 3 linebackers are out there. He's got 13 personnel, so he's got 3 tight ends. He's got a tight end. He's got 2 tight ends and a running back out there. And they snap the ball And all of a sudden, these linebackers, because now they're adding in motion into it, right? So, like, they're motioning Puka Nacua from one side of the formation to the other. They're using the linebacker. They're using the tight ends to motion from two tight ends to the right to even front tight ends. So, from one on the right and one on the left as well. And then they're snapping the ball, and these guys are just, like, running all over the field. And it's just so hard to keep track because they're running in and out of different portions of the 49ers zone. Because they cannot run man coverage versus these linebackers, Tyler Higbee and Cody Parkinson, because they just don't have the guys who are going to be able to keep up with them, especially when they turn upfield and their linebackers are in trail position. Their guys cannot jump high enough they cannot jump high enough to swat the ball out of the hands of these guys who are like 6'4", 6'3", all this kind of stuff like that, who are in full stride as well, by the way, with no safety over the top because Puka's running whatever direction Puka's going, that's where the safety is going. Whatever direction Devontae Adams is in, that other safety is going that way as well. So, they did that throughout the entirety of this game. There was just, I wouldn't even say it was like a talent situation, but it was just one of those prime examples of why teams are obsessed with guys like Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton. Guys who can do it all from the safety position, who are just a little bit slower than a typical corner, but also faster than a linebacker, with ball skills and the ability to read what type of play and what route is going to be open from a distance and be able to cover it. Those guys are so valued because of situations like this when you have to put three linebackers out there to be able to stop the run because the source of your problem is stopping Kyren Williams and then trying to figure out how to stop Matthew Stafford second because Kyren is controlling with his ability to run and get first downs. Kyren controls the thing that is stopping you from being able to win, and that's the ability to control the clock, right? Like, there's a chance that Matthew Stafford is inaccurate. There's a chance that a wide receiver drops a pass. There's a chance that he overthrows a person or something like that, and the ball hits the ground and it's incomplete, or it goes out of bounds and it's incomplete. If Kyren Williams is allowed to run wild on your defense, they will take every single second off the clock, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then they'll score at the end of the drive too. That's the tough part. And that's kind of what happened a bunch of times. The 49ers legit had a shot at a comeback in this when they scored back-to-back touchdowns and actually got a stop. Like I said, they didn't score on like two possessions throughout the entirety of this game. They actually got a stop at one point. They were down 35-20, which I know sounds like a lot, but right before it was 35-20. They were only down 28-20. They missed a 2-point conversion early on twice in this game. So it was still a one possession game when it's 28-20. Emmanuel Forbes actually gets an interception versus the 49ers. Mac Jones gets a pass tipped up in the air, and Emmanuel Forbes, yes, that Emmanuel Forbes that used to play for the Commanders, who they were like, oh man, you're a rookie cornerback, and so we're going to put you up against like some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Oh, what? You didn't absolutely shut them down? You suck. And now he's on the Rams playing like the best ball of his career in like the second year of his time in the NFL. It's just so weird sometimes. It's just like it felt like it was so obvious like why Emmanuel Forbes was struggling so much last season with the Commanders. And they still, I guess, refuse to believe it. But yeah, you're not going to draft a rookie corner. He becomes a shutdown corner instantaneously. But, he's doing really well with the Rams. Shout out to him. The drama in the NFC West continues to be absolutely insane. The Seahawks have two terrible games this season. One, they played really poorly versus the Houston Texans, especially in comparison to the other games they've played this season, right? And then they have the 49ers game they lost on week 1 of the season, where Nick Bosa sacked Sam Darnold inside their own, I want to say inside the 49ers 10-yard line when the Seahawks were trying to win the game. So now they're tied with the Rams for first, and the 49ers sit one game behind both of them, but do have a win over the Seahawks, which is huge. And word on the street, it's finally happened, y'all. It's finally happening. The cavalry's back. I guess Mac Jones is going back to the bench. I wonder how many incomplete passes Brock Purdy can throw before they start booing and asking for Mac Jones for the 49ers. Anyway, apparently Brock Purdy is coming back, and so is Ricky Parasol. So That's going to be huge. Another one of these big wide receivers for the 49ers that they've been missing throughout the course of this season. Like Ricky, when everybody else was hurt last season, the only guy they could depend upon was Ricky to run. And Ricky was doing it, man, but he's had a knee injury that's kept him out. I want to say this is like 6 weeks or something like that. And they have not placed him on IR, by the way. He's just been hurt. He's actually been at practice, just not fully participating or anything like that. And allegedly, I think somebody talked to John Lynch, legendary Hall of Fame safety, now general manager for the 49ers, and he really thinks that they're going to get Brandon Ayuk back this season. I thought there was a chance he was going to start in the first half of the season, but who knows, man. With Kendrick Bourne, Jawan Jennings, Ricky Parasol, and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, it feels like the 49ers offense is not like looking too bad overall, man, but having Brock Purdy in the mix, we'll see how that goes. I think it improves them, even though Mac Jones has been really good. It's going to be tough for the 49ers to keep Mac Jones during the offseason of this, during this offseason. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure somebody's going to want to give him a shot. It doesn't look like it's going to be the Vikings because they got J.J. McCarthy, unless, he becomes the new Carson Wentz, except better in terms of like his shoulder stays in one piece throughout the course of the season. Whatever. NFC West is going crazy right now. It's pretty much tied up at this point, and it's going to come down to the head-to-heads again. It's going to come down to, can Kyle Shanahan beat Sean McVay? Can Sean McVay beat Kyle Shanahan? And then, of course, Mike McDonald, who's like new to the whole situation or whatever, but, deep cuts in terms of like they play similar football. Like the Seahawks have looked a lot like what the Colts have looked like this season, except they have the number one wide receiver in the NFL in the mix. So that's pretty dope. Other snooze fest games, I actually look, man, I do you guys a lot of favors when I tell you that I watch every single play from this past week in NFL football. This is one of those times I'm doing you a favor. Sunday Night Football, I hope this was a nationally televised game, and I hope all of you either chose to go to sleep or spend time with your loved ones or talk to your girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other. Hell, I hope you were swiping on Tinder or doing something way more fun than watching Chargers Steelers. So I wrote a bunch of stuff down, and I think I can summarize this one a little bit better because I got a chance to write all this stuff down. The key things to take away from this: Kyle Duggar, who was the safety that was drafted out of Rensselaer College by Bill Belichick in the 2020 season, the COVID draft. He, as a matter of fact, if you go watch the clip, his dog Nike was sitting in the seat when the draft pick was announced, so it looked like Nike, the dog, drafted Kyle Duggar. Anyway, Kyle's been pretty good, good enough to get traded away, and now he plays for the Steelers. And then they cut Juan Thornhill, and they've now moved up. They actually cut Juan Thornhill, who used to play for the Kansas City Chiefs, and they brought up a practice squad player from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who was in camp with the Steelers earlier this year at the safety position to take Juan Thornhill's spot. And so they're kind of like shuffling around the defense a little bit, getting a little bit more youth in there, seeing what happens. And honestly, man, this score is like really deceiving. So I feel like I say that every week about the Steelers, but this time I mean it. And honestly, it's true. You'll see what I mean. The first two scoring plays of Sunday Night Football, and I would love to see the number of times this has happened. 59-yard field goal from Chris Boswell, Steelers kicker, and then a safety. So technically, the first 5 points of this game were scored by the Steelers. Shout out Aaron Rodgers. He got caught backing up into the end zone when Khalil Mack beat the right tackle for the Steelers and tried to run away from Khalil Mack. That did not work, in case you were wondering. A lot of people try to run away from Khalil Mack and have similar fates, but it would have been super dope if he just thrown the ball away. But we don't live in that time or that place. Anyway, the Steelers overall in this game, in case you couldn't tell, I told you they scored a field goal in the first quarter. They do not score again in this game until the fourth, after the game is already decided. There was basically no chance they were going to come back in this one, especially with the pace that their offense plays at. Keenan Allen in this game, huge momentous moment for him. A guy that I personally have been a fan of for a good chunk of time. A real route technician, if you will. He surpasses Antonio Gates for most catches in Chargers history, which is kind of crazy. Most catches in Chargers history from Keenan Allen, a guy I think most people wouldn't suspect, but has been a huge part of the Chargers' success and their rebuilds and all this kind of stuff like that. There's a reason he's back with the team that he left to go with the Bears. He went and got that bag and he came back home. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how it is. The big question coming into this game, and we got an answer, was whether or not the Steelers' defense was actually back, right? But I guess the bigger question for most people overall is like, are the Steelers for real based off of what happened last week when they dismantled the Colts? I can give you the answer definitively here, just like I did last week when I told you the Steelers' offense was actually dog shit in this game. In that game versus the Colts, they were terrible again today. Basically, if it wasn't Jaylen Warren, it wasn't getting done. Jaylen Warren has had one hell of a season, and that's saying a lot for a guy who has spent most of his time catching checkdowns and running behind offensive linemen. They're not getting pushed up the field. But nonetheless, the Steelers went out here and they played football. The Steelers defense only gave up 25 points in this game, and I remind you that 2 of those points came from a safety from Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's important to talk about the fact that there were also multiple, they intercepted Aaron Rodgers twice throughout the course of this game, so that's extra possessions that the Steelers had to defend on, and they still only gave up 25 points to a team that they had a legit chance to go out here and beat the Steelers if things kind of broke the way that they needed them to, aka Aaron Rodgers finally figures out how to make the Steelers offense work where DK Metcalf is actually touching the ball. That has been one thing that's been missing in the first month of the season. DK Metcalf was kind of touching it all over the place, in particular deeper down the field when he was in single coverage. He doesn't get that single coverage very much anymore, and when he does, unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers misses him in terms of the accuracy. This is easily one of the strangest duos that cannot figure it out, and we don't understand why necessarily. And it does suck because it doesn't feel like the Steelers are going to piece it together. Who knows, man? I heard a theory about how they've played the toughest part of their schedule, and now they have a bunch of easy teams coming up, and there's a real legit chance that they end up with 9 wins overall in the back half of the season. So I do believe the Steelers defense is back, and they showed it pretty decisively here in this game. They had 5 sacks, which was a lot in comparison. They had 5 sacks, and I think they forced a fumble, but it was recovered by the Chargers. Overall, the offense let the defense down in this game, and that's how this score got out of control. It was a bunch of short possessions. I want to say they had 4 3-and-outs. A bunch of short possessions combined with the offense turning the ball over and then giving the Chargers really good field position throughout the course of this game. And I think that's what allowed this score to balloon to 25 points. And that's saying a lot considering if you go back and watch or you go back and look at the stats on where they started their drives from, how well the Chargers offense was doing, which, by the way, to their credit, they are still dedicated to running the ball regardless of if O'Marion Hampton is back there or not. They are on their 3rd string running back, and they're still dedicated to running the ball, and they know how to pick him. Vidal has been killing it. He has been, and they said it during the Sunday Night Football broadcast, he's been the most consistent part of the offense out there, and that's saying a lot. They got Ladd McConkey on their team, but Quentin Johnston had a couple. I wouldn't say there were drops. He had a drop in this game for sure, but Quentin Johnston's still going out there looking like he's going to have a career year when this was all said and done. Gatson, the tight end, is still looking really good. Obviously, Justin Herbert's biggest deal is that his pass protection is going to be bad for the rest of this season, and there's a real legit chance that there's some more development that happens because I know they put in a tackle that I'd never heard from the Chargers in this Sunday Night Football game. There's a chance that they improve, but to the level that, you're talking about Joe Alt being a borderline All-Pro and Rashawn Slater being an actual All-Pro, unlikely, right? Unlikely that they drafted 3 All-Pro tackles within the last 2 drafts, which is the last 4 drafts. But the Chargers go out here and they get a key win because, once again, the AFC West is kind of crazy, man, right? They got the Broncos in the mix. Broncos have one of the best records in the NFL. The Chiefs are back, and they're still doing their thing. They look pretty much unstoppable at this point, and the Chargers still just got to keep winning until they get their second matchup with the Chiefs and see if they can win that one. That'll be interesting because I can't imagine what their pass rush is going to be able to do against the offensive line. But maybe they'll have gelled by that point when they face off against the Chiefs. Moving on, this game was so sad. Commanders Lions, 44-22 is the final score. How do I phrase this? It's the same thing. It's the thing that we've known this whole time. I wrote it down a bunch of sad stats. I was going to do that thing where I just read off all the crazy shit that happened in this game. But, maybe we do a little bit of it and we talk about what actually happened and I remember from my brain. It was 22-3. 22-3 at halftime of this game. At no point was the Lions offense stopped. And I mean that literally every single drive except the final drive where they kneeled it out, the Lions scored. Either a field goal or a touchdown. The running lanes were insane in this game overall. Pretty much any route that was in breaking, like literally broke to the middle of the field, the Commanders' corners couldn't cover it. I don't know what the deal was. There was like 3 touchdowns scored because somebody just ran an in route multiple times, or they ran a post. Or I guess it's a flag route when you run it inside. They ran that, and it was pretty bad. It's the worst that the defense for the Commanders has looked all season. The play action was the most important part of this entire system for the Lions. The wide receivers motioning. Amon-Ra St. Brown was just kind of doing whatever he wanted to, man. It was a clinic. They used David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and you know how it is when they use both of them. They're both really fresh, and they're trying to get theirs and trying to become RB1. They're both basically in an open competition at all times to be RB1, so it kind of sucks sometimes. The Commanders' offense actually did pretty well. They scored 22 points, which I guess you could say is bad for the Detroit Lions defense, but when you go back and you watch how they scored, Marcus Mariota did a really good job, like quarterbacking this team to 3 touchdowns. And they had like some crazy catches. They had like a garbage time touchdown, but overall, I would definitely say Marcus Mariota as, once again, A+ at the backup QB position, going out there and getting the team to be able to function correctly, because if he can score like this versus the Lions, there are like a lot of teams in the NFL that they can beat with the production that Marcus Mariota puts out there. Now, is that going to be enough for them to earn a playoff spot? Unlikely. But we'll see. Overall, great day for the Lions. Like I said, they scored on every offensive possession except the ones where they kneeled down, which you can't do much better than that. It's like getting 100% on a test or 99% on a test and doing your thing. But yeah, the Commanders' injuries at the defensive line are pretty fucking brutal. That's what the biggest issue has been here. Well, defense was an issue for them last season, but the D-line injuries this year have made it damn near impossible for them to get any pressure. They got Javon Kinlaw out there, and he got a sack on Jared Goff, which is huge for the Commanders just to get any sort of pressure just in general. The Lions have a really good offensive line. There's one O-line that you could say, other than the Bills and a couple other ones that are in contention for like top 3 in the league, it's definitely the Lions offensive line, especially if you are grading pass versus run. The run-wise, those guys they just destroy people, man. It's like a bulldozer most of the time because they're just slowly moving forward. It's not like they're hitting people like crazy hard or anything like that. They lock onto people and they just keep walking forward, and the D linemen just end up they end up shoulder to shoulder or back to back with each other based off of where the blocking is sent. But yeah, the Lions remain, and you tell me what you think. Write in the comments. You tell me what you think. I think the Lions actually are not that good. So I went back and I looked at their record, and they beat down really good teams. They beat down teams they're supposed to beat down. They're supposed to beat the Commanders. The Commanders, yes, they went to the NFC Championship game last year, but that was a lot of offensive domination. Not necessarily what we are seeing this season, where they are really struggling to defend in any way, shape, or form. Last year, they were able to get out there and actually get some progress and get some production in terms of like the defense. But this season, it's been they can't cover, they can't get any sacks, and they're starting to struggle to they're starting to struggle to defend the run, which is even worse. So, but yeah, they do what they're supposed to do. You beat down good teams, and they're struggling with all the they beat down bad teams, and they're struggling with the good teams. This is very similar to what we see the Broncos struggle with every single week, except the lines actually do adjust to their opponent to a certain degree. They are not strong in a lot of the big games that they've played this season. They dominated heavily injured Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they were, that was tough. That looks good retroactively now because we're talking about like Baker Mayfield potentially, if he picks it up a little bit, being in conversation for MVP. We'll see. I personally think it's already locked up as Jonathan Taylor, but I'm not a voter. And most importantly, you know how this league goes. So it should be Jonathan Taylor in the just order. It should have been Saquon. It should have been Saquon or Derrick Henry last year. But that's just not how the world works, unfortunately. But I will always say the real MVP is Jonathan Taylor this season. But yeah, the Lions dominated a heavily injured Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. They lost to a Vikings team led by a rookie quarterback by 3. They almost allowed a comeback on Monday Night Football versus the Baltimore Ravens, led by obviously Lamar Jackson without like his best targets or whatever. And that Ravens team, and think about what we believe about that Ravens team now. Like, we're not really sure if they're actually like up to snuff in terms of like being a team that's going to be a contender for a Super Bowl. We believe in Lamar, but everybody else is really kind of questionable, right? Like even Derrick Henry is kind of getting some questions about like what kind of running back is he going to be in the back half of this season. Even though I do believe tractor season is just around the corner. They lose to a Green Bay Packers team early in the season. And that Packers team had a lot of big expectations now. They got a lot of stuff up in the air with all the injuries and stuff like that, but they still are a really good football team. Every good team that they've played this season, including like getting smoked by the Chiefs, they have looked bad. Essentially, like they've not looked. It doesn't look like they've been going like back and forth. It feels like the other team is kind of like dictating to them, and they're always chasing. They were chasing versus the Vikings last weekend, and this game, they look better now, but they're just. I don't know, man. I don't think they're actually good. That's just me, though. I do love the way that they play football. It does not look like maybe they're just front runners. They're a team that can only look really good when they're ahead, and sometimes that is the case for a lot of football teams. Oh, also Donald Trump was on the broadcast for this game for like 5 minutes. Like he was like chatting it up with everybody in the booth, and he called like a play. I didn't listen to it because I watched the condensed version of it, so I only heard the parts where he was talking during the football plays. I also heard that he wants them to name the new Commander Stadium after him because that's the kind of guy he is. Anyway, I thought it was weird, President hopping in on that broadcast. And then I think about how Barack Obama, when he was president, would release his bracket on ESPN pretty much every year. So maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's similar. Maybe it's different. Who knows, man? Maybe it's because I don't like that guy. Whatever. Overall, on the Commanders, there's a lot of teams that they can beat in the NFL, despite what their defense is looking like, being with the kind of offense that we saw, right? Like we saw them, like their backup quarterback led them to scoring 3 touchdowns against a playoff caliber team. They are not dead in the water. By the way, just in case you were wondering, I already mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. The Commanders have 3 wins, and they are technically tied for the NFC East second place with the Cowboys, who also have 3 wins. Don't forget the Eagles have more wins than the Cowboys and Commanders combined together. That's it. Moving on, Heartbreakers section for the pod. Heartbreakers, next category. There was only one on the list. I had a bunch of notes written about this one because it was kind of clutch how this all kind of unfolded to a certain degree, but it is important to give full context to this one because we're here to talk about what happened and what I saw. This was a snow game. It was a little bit it didn't stick to the ground or anything like that, but as a Houstonian currently experiencing 82 degrees in the middle of November, it was very important to remind me and everybody else who is like me that winter does exist and it is here currently for some people. The thing is happening, but it's not. Wink. The Giants have 2 wins on the season, and we'll have 2 wins after this game is over with, as you can see what the final score is. They are currently 5 wins out of first place in the NFC East. They are the last place team, which makes them the third place team. They are 1 win away from being tied for second. So, but yeah, like I said, the Eagles may be able to win, they may be able to lose 7 games in a row and still win the NFC East, which would be pretty funny. Anyway, the Giants defense has not been they've not been as promised, right? They're not the sack factory. I will say this, Brian Burns is on the verge of potentially being a 20-sack guy this season. So that would be pretty sick. But, we all thought Sexy Dexy, Kayvon Thibodeau, and everybody else were going to be able to turn up, or Abdul Carter as well. And it turns out, outside of Brian Burns, basically nobody else is being able to get a bunch of sacks. So that happens, man. That happens because that's not how football works. It's not like a rotational thing where everybody gets to take a turn on being the guy. It has to be a consistent thing. Pressure is important to consistently have throughout the course of a game, and that's how you generate sacks late in the game. But Kayvon Thibodeau is second place on the team in sacks with 2.5. So there's Brian Burns with 11 sacks, tied for first. And then there's Kayvon Thibodeau with 2.5 in second. So, yeah, that should tell you everything you need to know. This game opens up with the Bears offense really flexing. They score on the second drive, but I do have to mention the Giants were also the second worst rush team in the NFL. That will be important later on. They are just behind the Titans in terms of how badly they defend the run. Before Caleb has a touchdown throw on the second drive of this one, the first drive, he rolls out to his right-hand side. He's under pressure. He's about 40 yards out from the end zone, and he's able to thread a ball straight down the sideline. And the only reason it wasn't caught is because it was just a little bit too far outside for DJ Moore. And then he does it again a couple plays later to another wide receiver. He just drops it. It would have been a touchdown, but he did drop it as he was trying to find his feet and stay inbound. So it was really weird because you never see Caleb. We haven't seen Caleb do some stuff like that. That looked very reminiscent to some of the stuff that you saw him do in college, right? And that's the big takeaway from this game. Caleb is kind of getting better. Improvement, development, weird. But yeah, it's been. The little things have been improving, like knowing when to run out of the pocket before the big scary men get in there to hit you, knowing when to throw to your checkdowns, knowing where the space is going to be when the play doesn't break out, or being able to throw with anticipation with plays that he was kind of struggling with early on in the season. But yeah, he actually looked pretty good throughout the course of this game. That does not change the fact that the Giants actually dominated 3 out of the 4 quarters of this game. Jackson Dart in the snow was plowing the Bears defense. Legitimately, domino up a little bit, but for the most part, it was the stuff that he was able to do with his legs. He was able to escape a lot of the Bears' pressure and then get up the field. He actually scored 2 rushing touchdowns in this game, and it was insane. He had 66 total rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns before he left the game. If you didn't hear in the third quarter, Jackson Dart's running down the left, or running up the left-hand side of the field. He loses the ball as he's running, and he tries to grab it out of the air, and as he's grabbing it, he gets tackled, and they smack him so hard into the ground. His head hits the ground so hard, he goes, look, I wasn't there. He looked like he was unconscious because he wasn't moving, and the ball was just kind of fluttering in the air. Because at first, he was fighting for possession of the ball, and then he smacks his head on the ground, and he stops moving. The Bears recover it. Jackson Dart goes into the tunnel, into the locker room, doesn't come back. He's actually already been deemed out for this upcoming week. Jameis Winston is going to be starting for the New York Giants, and we'll talk about why a little bit later on. But yeah, the 2 rushing touchdowns kind of were integral to the Giants getting up early and staying up early. It felt like Caleb had a really good day running. Monungai had a really good day running up front. And, of course, DeAndre Swift had a really good day running up front just because of the kind of defense that they were playing. A lot of the time, what was happening, they were getting past the line of scrimmage and there was no linebacker anywhere to be found. So it was either misreads or they were doing such a good job as running backs as deceiving as to what hole they were going to run through because there were so many options up front. It felt integral for them to be able to run the ball. In particular, Caleb running the ball actually paid off bigger dividends later on in the game in terms of them being successful. They had 171 rushing yards combined together. They ran the ball 30 different times. 16 of the runs were under 5 yards, so it wasn't like they were out there killing them. The other half of those runs, they had 9 that were over 5 but under 10. They had 3 that were over 10 but under 20, and then they had 2 runs that were over 20 yards that were massive when it was all said and done. Monungai had one, and then Caleb had one that got him all the way down to the 2-yard line late in the fourth quarter and essentially got them the lead back that they kept the rest of the game. The Giants led most of this game, and honestly, if Jackson Dart hadn't got concussed, they probably would have won this thing, bro. Like, that's the brutal part about it. Also, other piece of news that comes out of this, a couple days later, Brian Daboll gets fired after this game is over with, and a lot of people are speculating and saying that it's because of his willingness to run Jackson Dart, who looks like he could be a really talented quarterback, but a part of Jackson Dart's game is the ability to run up and down the field. Jackson also needs to do a lot better of a job in terms of sliding. He does it sometimes, but then there's other times where he gets a little too eager because you can see that he sees the end zone. He's a baller, it seems, and he sees the end zone and he wants to get there as fast as possible. So, but yeah, this game, it felt like it should have gone to the Giants, but it ended up going to the Bears because of a pretty key injury, right? Like you go up against the starting quarterback of the other team, he's killing the defense up front in terms of like being able to keep the drives alive, being able to throw the ball. Rondale Robinson, his favorite target, was killing them down the sidelines and stuff like that. It wasn't like they had like any huge plays. The biggest play they had was Darius Slayton, who actually left the game with a hamstring injury early on. He was on the sideline in his gear, but apparently too bad to come back into the game, which is like a real situation for sure, especially when it's cold out. You know what I mean? Sometimes it sneaks up on you how dehydrated you are. But yeah, Jackson are going down 100% shifted pretty much everything about this game. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But yeah, it was 10-7 at halftime in this one. Jackson Dart is cooking. He gets another touchdown drive after halftime to make it 17-7. And the Bears kick a field goal, and the Giants match it to make it 20-10. You see it kind of is getting a little close towards the end here. The concussion takes out Jackson Dart, but the Giants put in Russell Wilson, which is weird because now they're starting Jameis, right? Who knows, man? And Russ actually gets them into the red zone for the Giants. When I say Russ does it, I mean Devin Singletary had like a 66-yard run. Russ got him into the red zone, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's 10-19 to go in the fourth quarter, and you tell me how this works out. 10-19 to go in the fourth quarter. You're up 20-10. The Giants kick a 19-yard field goal. By the way, Young Wei Koo is back. He's the Giants kicker. Shout out to the young ho. You can never keep a good ho down. The Giants draw the Bears have too many men on the field. They decline the penalty. The ball is already spotted on the 1-yard line. I don't think they get new downs when they get too many men on the field because there's no first down to be gained because the ball is on the 1-yard line. But then, they move it 6 inches closer because it's like half the distance to the goal. And I was wondering in my head, I was like, you're up by 2 possessions technically. Why not, it's Russell Wilson, bro. Like, why not just try and QB sneak it in? Like, why not just duck your head and see if you can get in there? And if worst case scenario, you give the ball back to the Bears on like the 3-inch yard line. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst that could happen? They bomb it down the field and maybe they get a touchdown and you're still up by 3 and you're still trying to figure it out as opposed to what happens after this. So they go up by 3 in this one. They follow up that play with a punt on the following possession as well, and they punt into Bears territory. So the Bears, the Bears get the ball in their own territory, right? This drive might be the one that changes a lot of people's opinions on Caleb Williams as a whole. This drive is a masterclass of what he is capable of when things are all against him, right? They're down big early in the fourth quarter. Caleb is out there. The coverage from the Giants is actually pretty good. The pass rush is pretty good. Caleb just starts taking off on him. Caleb's like, if I don't see somebody open within the first 2 seconds of a play, he's just taking off and earning yards, taking off and taking yards there. And then it finishes off. He gets a couple of runs off from a Monungai that help him move the ball up and down the field. They get a couple of passes completed. And then on top of it, like I said before, he just starts bailing sooner. And he runs off, he takes off, and gets a 29-yard run where he's completely untouched until he gets down to the 2-yard line. And then one play later, they throw a touchdown. And it makes the score 20-17. The Giants inevitably try to run the ball out without Jackson Dart at this point, right? Like up until this point, the only person that's really had any success running the ball is Jackson Dart. So Tyrone Tracy's been having a tough go of it transitioning into the starting running back role. The Giants' inability to run without Dart burns them in this one. They essentially give up this win trying to avoid having Russ throw the ball. They get down to their punter, Gilman, has to punt the ball, and it finally happens. It's cold, it's windy, and if you guys don't know, when snow gets on the ball, it makes the ball harder, and it makes the ball slicker, and Gilman's foot slides off the side of the ball, and it short punts the ball to the Bears, and they recover it inside Giants territory, and then Caleb is running. Three plays later, Caleb Williams is running into the Giants end zone for the game-winning touchdown to make it 24-20. The Bears get like a sliver of hope in this game in the second half of it after having a first half that was a little lackluster. They scored a touchdown, right? Really lackluster. They get a sliver of hope. They power through it. They stuck with it. They figured out that improv, Caleb shows that his ability to improv is actually a big part of why the Bears can be successful as an offense. They have a killer day running the ball up and down the field, which is huge, especially when you talk about like later on in the season where you talk about potentially being in playoff spots and all this kind of stuff like that. But yeah, the lack of belief in Russell Wilson seemingly fucked this game away for the Giants, which is pretty funny to me because I thought about the logic of it, and I was like, if they threw the ball at Russ early, and when the pressure wasn't as fervent, right? Like when it's 20-10, if you throw the ball a little bit more, Russ gets to throw the ball up and down the field. Maybe he throws some incompletions. Maybe he throws a turnover. Maybe he has a turnover. But more than likely, they're going to be able to move the ball a little bit, as opposed to what they tried to do, which was run the ball the entirety of the time where they're trying to kill the clock. And then they get into a situation where the score is close, and now Russ is throwing for kind of the first time in the highest pressure situation possible. And obviously, you're talking about Super Bowl champion Russell Wilson. Some of that has got some magic's got to be left in that arm a little bit, but it's just really weird because it was like they could have thrown the ball earlier to keep drives alive, as opposed to what they chose to do in the back half of it, which was like wait until the absolute last possible moment and then try and force them to throw the ball in the bad situations where they know you're going to throw the ball and you're throwing it with your backup quarterback. Whatever. It's over. It's a heartbreaker game because, one, Jackson Dart, there's no telling how long he's going to be out. Concussions are like a real deal. Brian Daboll ends up getting fired. The Giants' season continues to slip and spiral out of control. Looks like they're cruising right towards a top 5 pick again, which will be huge for them because, you can never have too many talented football players on your NFL football team, especially when you live in like New York and stuff like that. But yeah, the Bears take a huge win from the jaws of defeat, and the Giants fans go home sad. That's pretty much the summary of this game. But yeah, I put it in the heartbreaker category because it, for me, was easily the most heartbreaking finish out of all the games that I saw this weekend. Moving on, go to the oh my category where we talk about how the path to the result was really interesting for some of these games and why it's important later on and why it could be important. It could be important this week or next week or possibly when the playoffs are coming around, Ravens, Vikings in this one. The Ravens defense carried them in this game. And that's the first time this season I've been able to say that. The Ravens defense carried the Ravens to a win in this game. And I'll explain why. These are two of the most suspect teams in the NFL. Baltimore Ravens, we don't know if they're they're going to fill out to the potential that we all think that they are. Because, coming into the season, we're like, man, the Ravens were really good on defense last year. And that was without their top guy, Mike McDonald, in charge and all this kind of stuff like that. They were killing it. They have one of the best linebackers in the NFL. They have Kyle Hamilton. They don't have a pass rush that necessarily has like a name that you can focus on in terms of being like a dynamic guy up front. But they do have guys who can go out there and make plays. And they do a really good job of defending runs up the middle for the most part because of their D tackles. But now we're in week 10. Kyle Hamilton's basically a box safety. He's in charge of, either stopping the run or covering tight ends, which is huge right now in the era of 13 personnel against certain teams. Having a guy who's kind of close to the line of scrimmage that can cover a tight end if they break off on a route. Michael Green has emerged as the linebacker of fortune, the guy to take Patrick Queen's and fill Patrick Queen's hole that he left when he went to the Steelers. They still don't have like a premier pass rusher or whatever, and at some point that's going to bite them in the ass. I would say the first 9 weeks of the season bit them in the ass, but whatever. Malachi Starks is now like the single high safety that everybody depends upon, and Jair Alexander is nowhere to be found. He's been benched essentially, and that's what the current status of the Ravens defense is, and it kind of is working. So J.J. McCarthy just came off a huge win versus the Detroit Lions just last week, and it's been interesting to say the least what the roller coaster of emotions that people have been on with JJ, because he's essentially only lost like one game since he got into the NFL. It's kind of crazy. He throws a couple of dimes throughout the course of this one. Justin Jefferson. And somebody out there, can somebody explain to me what JJ's connection with Jalen Sailors is? Is that like the guy that is this like second string thing where it's like Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson were all getting like the first team reps, and the number one wide receiver on the second string team is Jalen Sailors, because he finds him more than he finds Jordan Addison. Like JJ McCarthy dimes up Jalen Sailors. He has a perfect understanding of where he is at all times on the field. The Ravens offensively in this game do what they are supposed to be doing, making people figure out how to chase down Derrick Henry before using Lamar Jackson. And the Vikings answered the bell. I'm not going to lie. The Vikings did a great job, especially like at the line of scrimmage. They did not let Derrick Henry get loose at all, even when he ran to the outside. Alex Van Ginkel continues to prove how he is more than just a name, more than just a funny name. But he does a fantastic job on the edge for the Vikings overall, man. That guy's crazy good. The Ravens' biggest play of the entire first half was the interception they got from Malachi Starks, their rookie safety. Outside of that, I think it was like 9-7 was the halftime. It was 10-9, and they were all field goals from the Ravens. And the Vikings got like a huge catch from Jalen Sailors down the left-hand side to get into the red zone, and then they ran the ball in with Jordan Mason. By the way, Aaron Jones is back, so now they have two number one running backs. So the Vikings just kind of peaking at the right time a little bit here. But this game is interesting. The game turns in a pretty obvious way. The second half of this game starts off with two back-to-back Vikings turnovers. So it starts off with the Ravens getting a field goal again, and then they fumble the kickoff. So I actually wrote it down. The Vikings get a field goal in the first 5 seconds of the second quarter, and then they don't score again until there's like 5 minutes left in the third quarter. In that gap, they after halftime, it goes like this. Before halftime, it goes like this. They kick that field goal, and then it goes interception, Malachi Starks interception. It goes interception, punt, halftime, interception on the third play of the second half. They fumble the kickoff after the Ravens score off the interception, and then it is turnover on downs. So there's like 5 possessions in a row where the Vikings just, not only do they not score, they turn the ball over and give the Ravens a really good field position. And you tell me, do you think you're going to beat Lamar Jackson when you're giving him free possessions? Do you think you're going to be able to successfully stop Derrick Henry when he gets extra touches of the football? Most people can't. And most people, guess what, are the Minnesota Vikings. It's the first time all season, like I said before, the Ravens defense came through and did their thing, and they carried the team to a dub. But other than that, man, J.J. McCarthy actually kind of brought them back in this game late in the third and made it kind of competitive. But at the same time, the Ravens were, after halftime, they were ahead and stayed ahead all the way to the end of this one, and they were able to run the ball out. The Vikings did get one last possession, but they weren't able to string together enough passes to be successful. So that one shakes out pretty good. I put it in the oh my category because, like I said, it was pretty shocking to see the Ravens defense play that level of football overall. And they did a really good job. So I'm still not very confident about the Ravens offense, but that's a discussion for another day. Moving on to the other oh my category here. This one is really funny because it's very similar to another lesson that apparently the Dolphins have to relearn every single week. The Miami Dolphins won 30-13 over the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen played every single second of this game, except the back end of the fourth quarter where Mitchell Trubisky came in because it was so out of control. They did not want Josh Allen to stay out there. The Bills have a huge win on their resume after beating the Chiefs just a week ago on Sunday Night Football. Huge game for them. And the Dolphins just fired their GM, Chris Grier, and that was after the Thursday Night Football beatdown from the courtesy of the Baltimore Ravens. It was Lamar Jackson's first game back. They are major contenders, the Dolphins are, for the number one pick in the NFL draft coming up. And Mike McDaniel's employment status is kind of a daily question. Will his key card work every day? I'm sure he's hoping for that day that it doesn't soon. He seems like a guy who wants to get fired just because of how bad it's been lately. Anyway, the first play of this game is a 4-yard sack from the Bills. I'm dead serious. The first play on offense is they snap the ball and Joey Bosa sacks Tua. The third play of this game is an interception. And now Tua is tied with Geno Smith for interceptions this season, which is a tie for the most interceptions, in case anyone was keeping track at home. And then after this possession, I got to give them credit. You know, some people, they bang their head into the wall expecting the wall to break. And then some people, they look back and they look in the mirror and they ask themselves, who am I? Remember who you are. And the Dolphins use like the brain cell that's bouncing around. Like, you know, Mike McDaniels is a smart guy. He remembers something. He has another guy that when he has the ball in his hands, the other team doesn't end up with it. And he starts handing the ball to Devon Achane, and then all of a sudden, the Miami Dolphins offense works perfectly. It's crazy. They went to work. Dolphins get up 16-0 for the first 3 quarters of this game. That's how much Devon Achane was bodying them. That is how much the Dolphins defense. That is how well the Dolphins defense played in this game. It is probably one of the best defensive performances we've seen out of the Dolphins all season. And I will say this: they didn't take their union-mandated lunch break, guys. You guys know this. They do it like right around halftime every single game. They did not do it in this one. They played all 4 quarters of football, and what do you know? They won in decisive fashion. Now, if only they could do that every single week. But unfortunately, lunch has to be eaten. It is union mandated. I'm sure they'll be hearing from the union in the mail about how they did not take their break during this game. Anyway, mainly due to some great downfield coverage, the pass rush for the Miami Dolphins was able to get to Josh Allen a bunch throughout the course of this game. But the other thing that's really important, they were doing a great job of taking away the underneath stuff. Jack Jones, the defensive back for the Miami Dolphins, was all over the place throughout this one. In particular, taking away Khalil Shakir, who is the number 1 wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. And you guys know how they feel about wide receivers. They passed the 4 people on the Bills, and 3 of them are not wide receivers. It's Khalil Shakir, James Cook. They passed to Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, and don't ask them to throw to nobody else. So they do that throughout the course of this game. Except the Dolphins are actually taking it away pretty convincingly overall. And on top of that, they're defending the run. I don't know how. They were doing the safety trick. I take that back. They were using Jack Jones as the extra defender in the box to defend the run. It just wasn't a safety. It was a DB this time. The 2 prevailing forces in this game were, especially in the second half, it was Devon Achane and the Dolphins' defensive line. They were getting on Josh Allen's ass because the lead expanded. They started running the ball a little bit less. Don't we fall into the same trap all the time with the Bills? Every time they get down, they get down by 2 possessions and they forget that James Cook is on the team. You got to establish the run. But yeah, the Dolphins were locking up James Cook early in this game, and in the second half, he had a couple of good runs to go along with it, which leads to credence. You should let him run the ball more. Whatever. Josh Allen had to find a way to deliver the ball to wide receivers on the Buffalo Bills. What a crazy concept. The Dolphins came in and their game plan was make Josh Allen throw to the wide receivers on the Buffalo Bills. except Khalil Shakir. Everybody else, they have to win. Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, you get locked up. Dalton Kincaid, by the way, did not finish this game. I'm assuming it's the same injury he had last week. But, yeah, they locked up the tight ends and the running backs out of the backfield and made Josh Allen throw to the wide receivers, and that's what undid them throughout the course of this game. But yeah, the Dolphins offensively abused the Bills' injured defensive line up front. If you guys don't know, the Dolphins lost Michael Hoyt last week because he tore his Achilles. They had that whole like mic up segment that went like semi-viral in the NFL circles where he tears his Achilles, goes to the sideline, and he still chooses to stay out there and cheer on his teammates and stuff like that. Ed Oliver comes out there, and Ed Oliver is on IR as well. AJ Epinesa was concussed and didn't play in this game. And they even lost like JT Sanders, who's one of the rookies from last season, who got like 50% of the snaps from last year. He's not available. He's on IR now. And that's how tough it's been for the Buffalo Bills. They can't find anybody to help them on the D line, and it shows. They got ran through on this one. And obviously, I did the breakdown for Devon Achane. Don't worry. If you guys don't know, I used to cover Devon when he was in high school, when I was a high school sports reporter. In the first half, he had 88 yards. In the second half, he had 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. Seven of his runs were over 10 yards, including a 59-yard touchdown and a 35-yard touchdown. That's what it looked like when he was in high school. I'm not even joking, man. Like, you go back and you watch his high school tape, and it's literally just him running in open space. That doesn't include the fact he did get tackled for loss 3 different times in this game, but he kind of made up for it in the sense that he had like he had 51 receiving yards, and then he also had more receiving yards than every single pass catcher on the Bills except Khalil Shakir, who I think had 6 more yards than him. That's how the Dolphins dismantled the Bills, folks. Also, this was an attempt to sweep the Dolphins, which is like extremely difficult, just in general, not just the Bills and the Dolphins, but it's difficult to sweep any divisional opponent overall. Moving on in the oh my category here, the Jets played against the Cleveland Browns. The Jets, if in case you didn't hear it, they gave up. They tapped out. I'm kidding. They didn't actually tap out, but they kind of did at the same time. The Jets traded away Quentin Williams to the Dallas Cowboys, and they traded away Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts, who we're going to talk about a little bit later on in this show. And that was massive for the NFL as a whole. Those are 2 of the better defensive players at each of their positions. Sauce Gardner was knocking on the door of potentially being a number 1 corner, the number 1 shutdown corner in the NFL just a couple of years ago. Quentin Williams is considered to be one of the best D tackles. Now that Aaron Donald is retired, he's definitely up there in terms of like top 3, top 2 overall. The Jets had the best part of their team traded away. And then on top of that, last week they actually benched Quincy Williams, who is the brother of Quentin Williams. He was their starting middle linebacker a couple years ago. He was all pro, and he got benched for production issues. And then somebody got hurt, and he had to start. So that was tough. That was awkward, I'm sure, for the coaches. He got benched for 1 week. The Browns are the Cleveland Browns. That's all you need to know. That's what they did for the trade deadline. The Browns are the Browns. They actually did trade earlier this week. It was earlier this season. They traded for Greg Newsome and Tyson Campbell? Or was that what the trade? Was that who the trade was for? It was Greg Newsome is now on the Jaguars and Tyson Campbell is now on the Browns, and they swapped places. Tyson Campbell used to be a Jaguar. Yes. The second drive was amazing, and it ends with David Njoku flipping into the end zone for the Cleveland Browns. The first drive probably got 500,000 people in Cleveland to tune into some other game. It looked bad, like really bad. Chat, like throwing it past the line of scrimmage, it gets deflected up into the air and almost intercepted twice. Bad. But yeah, none of that fucking mattered though, because it was not about the Browns in the first half of this game. It wasn't about the Browns in the first quarter of this game. It was about the fucking Jets. The Jets had 2 touchdowns that were not scored by their offense. They had a kickoff return after the Browns scored their touchdown on the second drive. The Browns punt the ball away because the Jets defense is still pretty good despite having their 2 best defensive players sent somewhere else. And they're also playing against the Browns. The Jets run the punt back for a touchdown. So it's back-to-back scoring touchdowns without the offense having to step onto the field. And if you're the Jets, that is the most ideal situation for you to be able to score points. Not having the offense on the field, because them being on the field usually means that points are not getting scored. The game's starting to get heated. It's 14-7, like really early on in this one. And I don't think anybody would have thought that the Browns and the Jets get together and all of a sudden it's a scoring bonanza. Both of these QBs get rocked by the pressure from each other's defenses. This game was way more about defense than it was anything else. Dylan Gabriel actually misses throws on plays with no pressure. That's how good the Jets' pressure was in this one. That's without Quentin Williams, by the way. He overthrows like a screen pass 3 different times in the first half in this game. Then Justin Fields spends the first half sliding short of the first down marker. You guys know how Justin is. I'll just spoil it for you. He completed 6 passes in this game. He was all good. There was no turnovers until there was a shotgun snap. And by the time Justin Fields had the ball, he was looking over to his right-hand side for an out route. And what he saw was Myles Garrett 3 yards away from him. And so he threw it into the field of play, and it gets intercepted by our Player of the Week. The Cleveland Browns safety, for the uninitiated, was Ronnie Hickman, who got the interception. He's our Player of the Week. If you're new to the show, there's a random player that I do a profile for throughout the show randomly every single week. So, Ronnie Hickman, he's the starting safety for the Cleveland Browns. He spends a lot of time in single high, as a matter of fact. And his nickname is Rocket, which honestly, I thought it was like, first of all, it's really difficult now in this day and age to get like a genuine nickname that's not just your initials or a shortened version of your first name. So Ronnie Rocket Hickman, I'm all for it, man. And I looked it up. It actually isn't even about like how fast he is as a DB right now. Apparently his dad, Ronnie Hickman Sr., said that Ronnie was nicknamed Rocket as a toddler because he used to try and take off before he could actually walk. It's actually, I think, a lot more. I think that lore is pretty dope. That's some pretty dope lore. He's a former U.S. Army All-American. For those of you who know what's up, the U.S. Army one is the not as fun one because the U.S. Army... Anyway, it's the not as fun U.S. All-American because Rivals and all the other All-American game, you get a bunch of free stuff. U.S. Army All-American game, you get a bunch of free stuff too, but it's nowhere near to the degree. The other one, he was a 4-star high school recruit when it came to football. But before that, he committed to Rutgers to play lacrosse. Because he's been playing lacrosse since he was in 3rd grade. Don't know if he still does it now, but he did have to give it up to be able to focus on football, which is kind of a bummer because of you hate to have like everybody starts playing sports for fun at some point or another, and that was one of those moments where you hear a guy being like, "Yeah, I had to actually stop playing my favorite sport so I could focus on the sport that I was good, like even better at." That also pays a lot more money, but it does pay out for him. He made a lot of money. He ended up at Ohio State. He plays for his football career. He's also from South Orange, New Jersey. Today I learned South Orange, New Jersey is where fucking Seton Hall is at. Did not know that's where Seton Hall was. I thought it was Seton Hall, New Jersey. I'm not even going to lie. That's important because he was a UDFA to the Browns, and in his rookie season, he played against the Jets, where he has 3 interceptions on his career so far. 2 of them are versus his hometown team, the New York Jets, which I think is kind of ironic. Very fitting that a Jets fan would cause the Jets fans more suffering. It feels like kind of like the circle of life to a certain degree, the circle of fandom. But yeah, anyway, back to the football. Dylan Gabriel, one play later after that crazy interception from Ronnie Hickman, throws a dot to Jerry Jeudy in the back of the end zone while he's got a defensive back in trail position on him for a touchdown, and he doesn't drop it. That ties the score up 14-14 with an interception and a punt return, interception, punt return touchdown, and a kickoff return for a touchdown, all before halftime in one game that features the Browns and the Jets. I know, something kind of amazing. It gives you hope that any game that you watch at any given point can turn out to be amazing. It could also turn out to be the Bills getting the shit beat out of them by the Dolphins. By the way, the Jets get their first down in this game at the 10-minute mark of the second quarter. But they have 14 points on the board. Totally normal NFL game. Totally reasonable. You should expect to see that every single time you go watch the NFL. That's why this is a billion-dollar industry, because crazy shit like that can happen. The Jets are getting destroyed up front, and so they start running the ball. What a concept. What a thought. It was so funny because just in general, it feels like the Jets forget that they have Breece Hall all the time. Anyway, this eventually leads to the Browns defense getting burned on one of their blitzes. They send linebackers in on a blitz, and Breece Hall's running the other direction. They're coming in. They're not even passing the line of scrimmage, and Breece Hall is 5 yards down the field, and it'll eventually turn into 42 yards down the field as Justin Fields is able to dump the ball off to Breece Hall on like a screen type play, and they time it up pretty perfectly. Don't know if it was on purpose or on accident. Either way, it worked out. They score a touchdown, and it makes Justin Fields look good. Anyway, the Jets, like I said, were cooking pressure up all game. Will McDonald, who has had a couple of games where he has looked really, really good, like the guy that they were promised when they drafted him. He finishes this game with 4 sacks. Like 4 sacks in a single game. And the Jets had 6 in total, just to let you know how that Browns offensive line is doing, folks. Fantastic. While the pressure is pretty much the key, it won't stop the Browns from getting like a field goal multiple times as they kind of get in range pretty easily. It's just what happens after they get in the range. Dylan Gabriel is the drag route king. He's never seen a drag route he doesn't like to throw at, which does work pretty well when you're in the open part of the green zone, as they like to call it, with technical terminology and stuff like that. But when you get into the red zone, everybody's looking for the drag routes because there's less space to cover behind them. The Browns cut it to 27-20, with the Jets still in the lead when this is all said and done. The Jets get into a 3rd and 16 at one point, and this is with under 2 minutes to go. And they get called for holding, and that reset the Browns get called for holding. It resets the downs, and it gives the Jets 5 yards. Sorry, it gives the Jets 5 yards outside of their own 40-yard line. Right, Breece Hall gets a few key runs, but eventually the Browns defense locks up again, and they get another long 3rd down that they got to figure out how to do it with the clock stopped, by the way. And after that, the Browns used their last timeout to stop the clock, like we said before. The Browns finally, for the first time this season, let the squad down. There was an offside call, and it resets the downs because it gives the Jets a 1st down, and the game is over. So that's how that one ends. Strangely enough, the exact opposite of the entirety of the Browns season. They score 20 points this season for the 2nd time overall. The Jets scored 27 points and they scored 1 offensive touchdown off of a 42-yard screenplay. Justin Fields completed 6 total passes in this game, and he got sacked 3 times. And he also threw an interception. And they scored 27 points. And somehow the Browns still lost. The Jets will regret this win. They will grow to rue the day that they beat the Browns, because they are both in competition for the same game, and it is not the Super Bowl. So Dylan Gabriel-wise, when he had time in the pocket, he threw it. He just never felt like he had a bunch of time in the pocket. Overall, there was a couple of good throws in there. He looked a lot more confident than he did the first start that he got, but time is ticking. Everybody knows how this goes. I don't know how real the pressure is inside the Browns building to start Shedeur Sanders, because they did draft him, but I don't know if they believe in him to the point where they're going to yank their other rookie quarterback to try and start Shedeur. And then as soon as they start him, everyone will be like, it took him long enough, even though that's not how being a rookie in the NFL works. And then after that, if Shedeur struggles because the offensive line has been bad for every quarterback, regardless of who gets underneath center, then it'll be the Browns' fault, right? Even though it's like the same not great offensive line the entirety of the season. Whatever. I'm projecting way too far in the future. Probably the last 3 games of the season. Who knows? So Dylan Gabriel-wise, I thought he did pretty good. But the Browns did everything right and still lost in this one, because you can't give up a punt return touchdown and a kickoff return touchdown on essentially back-to-back plays. So, yeah. The Browns scored 20 points for the 2nd time this season, so that's the bright side. They didn't even need any special teams touchdowns for it. They did it with their offense. So that's great. The Saints played the Cardinals. All right, man. The Saints are in game 2 of the Tyler Shaw era. They also traded away their second best wide receiver, Rashid Shaheed. He's with the Seahawks now. And in a better place, as I like to call it, with the Seattle Seahawks, my team. We're in week 10, and the Saints have scored 20 points in 2 games this season. Every other game they scored under 20 points. We're in week 10. So it's going great. They're second to last in offensive touchdowns, and they're damn near last in rushing yards per game. This year is all about, say it with me, folks, in the back, development. Saints fans, it's week 10. You knew what this was going to be. You knew those void years were going to finally catch up to you. If you don't know what the void year situation is with the Saints, we don't have an hour to talk about how the salary cap is not real. Anyway, the Panthers get one of my favorite things, one of your favorite things, an opening drive touchdown. That's right, they get an opening drive touchdown, and as you can tell by the score of 17-7, they get nothing else. Dead serious. The Panthers scored on the first drive of this game, and then they proceed to not score for the remainder of the game. The Panthers even got like a silly goose play that kept the drive alive here. The Saints' pressure finally missed on Bryson. He started to cook them in the middle of the third quarter in this game, and he leads the Panthers all the way down to the Saints' 20-yard line. They get stuffed. They have to kick a field goal. The field goal gets blocked by the Saints. The Saints fall into like a giant pile of players with the ball at the bottom, and a Panthers lineman comes out with the ball. The stupidest, rarest instance of a instant turnover that just resets the downs happened. So if you don't know this, most of the time you've ever seen a field goal kicked and blocked, it goes back towards the kicker without ever crossing the line of scrimmage. Sometimes it crosses the line of scrimmage in the air, meaning that it is a live ball, even if it gets blocked backwards. Now, this was not the case in this game. This was the case. Kicker kicks the ball. It gets blocked by the Saints. They block it into the head of a Panthers offensive lineman, and then it bounces in the air off the helmet across the line of scrimmage, and the Panthers recover it, and they get first down again. As you can tell from the score, though, they don't score on that play. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure this is when, yes, wide receiver reverse from the Panthers, they fumble the ball, and the Saints recover it. So the dumbest turnover ever turns into a pretty bad turnover. Not the dumbest one. People turn the ball over on wide receiver reverses all the time. The Saints throughout this game are a series of flashes of what would be considered a good offense. They'll get a good run from Alvin Kamara and then 2 incompletions from Saw. Saw will throw a couple of dimes, or he'll throw some really good checkdowns that get him into the third and short, and then they try and run the ball down with Kamara. He gets stuffed. But yeah, it's just flashes of what we would think a good offense is. And then you add in the Panthers being a good defense that gets pressure and covers well, and you get a whole lot of like mid-offense and bad execution, bad timing, bad chemistry overall, because once again, this is just his second game starting in the NFL. He is supposed to suck, and they still put up 17 points and won this game, which is the most impressive part because Tyler did break the passing yard record in a single game for a Saints rookie quarterback. And he also is the first rookie quarterback in Saints history since the 80s, 1981 to be precise, to win a game in his rookie season. All the other times, they've not been rookies. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I guess Arch Manning didn't start or didn't win a game in his rookie season. Maybe he didn't start as a rookie. Because actually, you know what? Starting rookie quarterbacks is like a relatively new concept too. So that would make sense that Arch Manning wouldn't start as the Saints quarterback. Anyway, somebody just hopped in the chat. My bad. I didn't even see it. Yo, what's up? I don't know who that is. Shout out to them. Sorry I didn't see your message. I thought I had my little chat bot feature thing up that it shows it on the screen. My bad, Sheen1386. If you're out there watching right now, make sure you like and subscribe. We're almost done with the show because there's only 2 games in the this is what we're here for category. But moving on, the Saints kind of look weird throughout the course of the game, but they're still the more successful offense. Bryce follows up that interception. Speaking of bad execution, my bad. Like I said, that blocked field goal turns into an interception for the Saints, right? Like they intercept a fumble, and then the following possession from the Panthers, the Saints get another interception because Bryce Young throws a ball to Tyrone McMillan without looking at who's around him. He throws it to a spot, and in that spot is Alontae Taylor, because Alontae Taylor bluffed at the line of scrimmage like he was blitzing, and then he dropped immediately, and he ran directly to the spot that was underneath the out route that Tyrone McMillan was running, and almost as if he be watching film sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like he's a professional football player or something. He catches that ball, and they run that back. Yeah, like I said, that's crazy. Don't you worry. Tyler Slaw throws his second best throw of the day for a touchdown, and his first one is a bomb to score the Saints' first touchdown in this game. The second one was pretty nice as well. But yeah, the Panthers respond in the middle of the fourth quarter with a turnover on downs. And they're also down 17-7. The Saints run the ball out, and they win the game. It's pretty simple. I went back and I looked at the numbers. Bryce Young was under pressure half the times that he dropped back to pass the ball. And most quarterbacks are pretty bad. Young quarterbacks are even worse when it comes to dealing with pressure, especially with younger wide receiver groups, which is, I want to say the Panthers have like the youngest wide receiver group in the NFL because most of them are either first year or second year wide receivers outside of our guy Hunter Renfrow, who does not really touch the field very much for the Panthers. But nonetheless, the Panthers still have 5 wins on the season. It was pretty bad. Also, the Saints knew exactly how to beat the Panthers, and it was to stop Rico Dowdle, which they did. They're the first team to do that this season. The Panthers are now 5-5 on the season, and honestly, the divisional familiarity thing claims another victim in this one, because if the Saints and the Panthers weren't in the same division, I don't know how. They played as if they knew a lot of what the Panthers playbook is, which I have to assume that they do because they played them last year, they played them this year, and all this kind of stuff like that, and the players are familiar with each other as well. By the way, this is the overarching theme of the NFL weekend. Opponents going up against divisional opponents and the exact opposite results happening. It is very rare for somebody to sweep their entire division, let alone most of the teams in their division, to win the division overall. Despite all that, the Panthers are still only 1 game out of the NFC South championship race, and they led the NFC South. They lead with 7 games left, and that means that they could get like 5 wins in a row, and I think they can get a wild card spot because 5 wins in a row would make them 10-5. No, yeah, 10-7. Or sorry, it'd make them 10-7 on the season, and then they would be, I think, in legitimate contention to win the wild card spot. Because right now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in first in the NFC South, and I don't think the Panthers are going to be in a position to overtake them or beat them head on. But a 10-win team in the NFC should win one of the 2 wild card spots in theory. But we'll see. The Panthers in the playoffs sounds like a crazy concept. The Saints are on a 4-game losing streak, and then they broke it by beating the Panthers, so shout out to them. That is pretty much all I got on this one. Oh, by the way, Tyrone McMillan, I've been watching his YouTube channel. Kind of a fan of the guy now, a little bit. Still never going to call him T-Mac because there's only one T-Mac. But Tyrone McMillan he's on track to potentially have a 100-catch, 1,000-yard season. He has 7 games left. He needs 8 catches a game in each one of those games to get the 100 catches, and he only needs 382 receiving yards over 7 games, which is only slightly above his normal receiving yard average. So he could, I'd have to check who's the last rookie. Well, there's only been 28 rookies who have had 1,000 yards receiving season in the history of the NFL, and Tyrone McMillan could be on track to be number 29. So yeah, and there were 4 of them, by the way, last year. Don't forget that part. That was crazy, right? Tyler Sloth may be good, We'll see. Like I said, he broke those records about being he broke those records, like the Saints rookie quarterback records. But the Saints are definitely in competition for a really high draft pick. To all the Saints fans, I would suggest you keep checking Tankathon. By the way, I checked Tankathon, and the Buckeyes have this safety named Caleb Downs. He's like a second-generation NFL player. His brother is Josh Downs. His uncle and his dad played in the NFL, which is pretty cool. And his uncle is Dre Bly. Some of you may recall. He played for the Rams and the Lions as a cornerback. And you'll never guess what Dre Bly does now. If you guess that he's an assistant defensive backs coach for the Jets, you're really weird for doing that, but also very correct. I'm assuming you're a Jets fan, which is, going back to my previous point, you are weird for being a Jets fan. But nonetheless, he's an assistant's DB coach for the Jets. And the guy who is the head DB coach for the Jets is Chris Harris. Yeah, that Chris Harris, the former Chargers defensive back. So that's pretty cool. There is a former Broncos defensive back, my bad. Aaron Glenn knows him some DBs. He used to play DB back in the day in the NFL. But it would be cool if Caleb Downs ended up being a Jet when it was all said and done. But the fact of the matter is, they're mocked to currently draft a quarterback. And then right after that, the Raiders are supposed to take Caleb Downs, according to Tankathon, which would be so heartbreaking overall. That is my tangent for this segment. Moving on, the Patriots played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The result of this one was pretty shocking because despite how close the score was, most of this game was the New England Patriots looking pretty good. The Bucs offensively have made drastic changes, and they look a lot more like the Colts. They are running a lot more 13 personnel overall, so double tight end formations because they don't have Chris Godwin Jr., they don't have Mike Evans because he broke his collarbone, so they don't have him for the rest of the season, and they still don't have Bucky Irving back. But they have Sean Tucker and they have Rashid White, who have actually been doing a pretty good job running the ball up the middle, combined with a strong focus of running the ball with Sean Tucker. They don't have to be Jonathan Taylor for the offense to work. The offense worked before Jonathan Taylor existed. It will work after. Will it be as immaculate as it is for the Colts with Jonathan Taylor? Probably not. But they did get on the board first, and the Patriots, after struggling to hold up with their pass blocking, they score off of a massive bomb from Kyle Williams. So essentially this play is they drop back, Drake May scanning the field, pressure coming. Right before he gets hit, he's able to float a pass for a crossing route to Kyle Williams, and Kyle has already beaten his defensive back. He turns upfield, and he looks like he is running a 4.140-yard dash for about 72 yards, which is how long it took him to get to the end zone. So that was pretty crazy. Overall, massive play and it's actually going to be the theme of this game, unfortunately. This game came down to who blinks first, and it was the Buccaneers who blinked first. The defenses are nasty. The offenses are led by two really high-level quarterbacks. Like Drake May is playing like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. Baker Mayfield's playing like an MVP caliber quarterback. Combine that with Stephon Diggs, Emeka Egbuka, and then the running backs who, not necessarily like superstars or anything, but like Travion Henderson and I think it's Trevon Jennings, have been looking really good. Like the running game has been on the uptick. Rashad White has been getting better at running between the tackles. I feel like I've been saying that for like 3 years, and it's just not true. But he's getting better at running between the tackles. Sean Tucker is still out there running the ball in between the tackles for the Buccaneers and getting their run game going because their offense is best when their run game is flowing. The Patriots pull off right before halftime a 7-minute soul-crushing touchdown drive, and it kind of feels like it could be going their way. The throw to Stephon Diggs, by the way, for the touchdown is an example of like why it's important to have QB wide receiver chemistry. And he lines up, first of all, he lines up outside, motions inside of, I want to say, Demario Douglas. They both kind of give each other the nod, snaps the ball, and I think Tony Romo's like, oh, this ball's going to Stephon Diggs. They run the route of sin, as we all know, the devil's route, the fade. And it's literally dropped on a dime, like a dime, and Stephon Diggs is the only wide receiver that could catch it. And it's pretty pretty scary type stuff to see from a second-year quarterback. And it was amazing to see him do that with Stephon Diggs, a guy who is coming off of an ACL tear. I feel like we keep forgetting that. Maybe we all need to do some Tuesday. Maybe that'll help us all with our ailments. Anyway, it's 14-10 at halftime. The Patriots get the ball out at halftime, and they double dip 2 plays into the third quarter of this game. TreVeyon Henderson hits the Buccaneers defense for a 55-yard rushing touchdown. So they score that on that soul-crushing drive, and then they get a 55-yard touchdown, and it looks like it's all Patriots on this one. The Bucs respond with, you guessed it, a bunch of passes to Emeka Egbuka. He was kind of killing Christian Gonzalez the entirety of this game, and he actually was doing a good job against the Patriots zone too. This was hands down the most befuddled I've seen the Patriots defensively all season. So a testament to the Buccaneers overall. Baker has like a really good understanding of not only the offense that they were playing, but also like why the Patriots play the way that they do. The Patriots make a big emphasis on covering underneath stuff and taking away the run. And Baker Mayfield did a fantastic job of attacking the middle of the field, which is supposed to be the area where the short guys don't throw the ball. Allegedly, according to the people on the internet, according to the ball knowers, which I am not one. But he does a great job, especially with Emeka Egbuka, killing him over the middle, forcing a little bit more hesitation for the defense up front. The Patriots kept the Patriots honest by trying to run the ball a bunch with Sean Tucker. They kept them honest by continuing to try and get the screen game going, which is really important for your success as an offense overall. The Bucs defense maintains pressure in all 4 quarters. Drake May, every third play is kind of like dumping out of the pocket, which is massive for getting him off kilter, especially considering how big a lead that they built up. And this that pressure includes a drive that would have ended any hopes for a Buccaneers comeback, and eventually, because of the pressure, it forces Drake May to roll out to his right-hand side, and a Buccaneers defensive back, he's a rookie. I'm sorry, he's not a rookie. He's a second-year player that was drafted on the team last year. This Tyke Smith actually uses either a tendency he saw in Drake May, because Hunter Henry was running across the back of the end zone behind him, and Tyke Smith knows how much Drake May loves him some tight end, and he loves to throw to some tight end. Tyke Smith tracks it down, intercepts a pass that was intended for Hunter Henry in the right-hand corner of the end zone, and gets the ball back for the Buccaneers. It's 5:17 to go in the fourth quarter. The Bucs get the ball on their own 20-yard line, and the comeback is kind of in sight. The Patriots shut it down, and on the 4th down, a guy the Jags had convinced us sucks. K'Lavon Chaisson takes out Baker Mayfield. 2 plays later, the Patriots get the game ender of all game enders. It's TreVeyon Henderson again, and he hits him for 69 yards on a touchdown and fucking murders him. It's brutal, because it's look, man, the Patriots had 2 legit drives the entirety of this game, and one of them ended in an interception in the end zone. Everything else was massive explosive plays. A 69-yard rushing touchdown, a 55-yard rushing touchdown, a 72-yard pass play to a wide receiver as he's falling backwards off his back foot and getting hit by a defensive lineman. They talk about that Any Given Sunday speech. The inches that we need to win are all around us, and it felt like the Buccaneers just couldn't grasp those inches when it was all said and done. This is a tough loss to take. Luckily, it's to an AFC team, but when it's all said and done, the Buccaneers come close in this one, but no cigar. Loss is a loss. They are still in the lead in their division, which is huge for them. And the Patriots also still in the lead in their division, mainly because they haven't lost since September. It's November. They haven't lost since September, and it is Currently November. Moving on to the last category so I can go to sleep. This is what we're here for. So we'll take it from the top. I know I didn't do Texans versus Jags. This is supposed to be on this list, and I don't know why I didn't type it in. Texans beat the Houston Texans beat the Jacksonville Jaguars rather decisively, which I wouldn't say is like all that impressive, but it is impressive for the Houston Texans, a team that is been struggling is the nice way to phrase it. Final score in that game, hold on, I'm looking it up right now. It is Texans 36, Jacksonville Jaguars 29, and I'm going to say it in the mean way because I don't like the Jaguars as a team. If there's one team in the AFC South that I despise the most, it is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not going to lie, they had us in the first half, coach. At one point, the Jags were up 16-0 in this game. Don't forget, prior to this, Jacoby Myers, the Jacksonville Jaguars traded for Jacoby Myers from the Las Vegas Raiders. This game would go on to become the biggest comeback in Jacksonville Jaguars history. Like the biggest comeback that they've given up in Jacksonville Jaguars history. Davis Mills, have to wonder just a little bit, it's a little weird right now, but you have to wonder, is he doing the whole thing where guy gets drafted really highly and then he sits down for a little bit after he loses a starting job and then he comes back and he's 10 times better than he was before? Just a thought. It's one game, but it is a thought that creeped into my mind. And this is without the whiskey in my system. This is just a thought. Woody Marks. At one point, I thought Woody Marks tore his Achilles in this game, and I literally freaked out in the group chat so hard. He was walking to the sideline. He takes a step, and he grabs the back of his leg, and it looks like he tears his Achilles. Do not worry. A couple plays later, he comes back into the game, and he runs in a touchdown. So that was very short-lived. Anyway, the Texans defense does it again. They gave up a ton of points in this game for the first time all season, but nonetheless, in the second half, they were lights out. The Jaguars scored one time in the third quarter, and then they did not score for the rest of the half, which was huge for the comeback overall. Will Anderson goes crazy on him. In particular, Danielle Hunter, who has been struggling to get sacks, but has gotten a bunch of pressures. He gets 3.5 sacks in this game, which leads me to my other part of, Trevor Lawrence crumbling again in another kind of medium stakes game. The DB pass coverage in the second half of this game was pretty immaculate. And my guy, Parker Washington, another massive game. Last week, he had 90 yards receiving. This week, he has 33 yards receiving, but it doesn't stop there. He has a receiving touchdown, toe tap touchdown, and then he has a punt return touchdown as well to get 14 points out of the 29 points that the Jacksonville Jaguars had in this game. Dude is electric for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's been slowly building towards this point, and now it's his time. I love to see it, despite how I feel about the Jaguars as a team, as a Houstonian. Trevor Lawrence kind of falls apart in this one again, man. Like I said, it was 20-10 at halftime in this game, and the Jaguars scored for the final time in this game late in the third quarter, and the Texans scored 3 more times unanswered and get the win. Davis Mills gets probably the second best performance out of this offense. I dare say maybe even the best performance out of this offense that we've seen all season, which is massive to get Higgins and Nico Collins and everybody involved. Woody Marks, you can kind of see the vision of where the team could be, and hopefully they can carry that momentum when CJ comes back, because he is going to be the starting quarterback again despite all the struggles we've seen with the offense up front. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. Don't forget that part. That weighs heavy because it's just this is yet another game where we see what the Texans can do when they get good pass protection, right? They go up against a couple of bad pass rushes, and those are the games where they light it up in terms of the scoreboard. And this is one of those massive ones. This comeback was insane. If you watched it from beginning to end, it was a roller coaster. It was a roller coaster just because it started off electric, and it looked like the Jaguars are going to run away with this one quick. Early, like I said, at one point they were up 17-0. Yeah, man. That it was insane. Amazing to watch. And then the game that I have for this is what we're here for, the games that make NFL fans, the game that I was asleep for. I've already told you my rule about the international games. I'll say it again, though. The international games, I only watch one football player in the world at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it is my little niece, Bailey. Other than that, I will not be waking up at 8 a.m. to watch international football because 99% of the time it looks a lot like Bills Dolphins as opposed to what we got here, which is probably like the best international game we've had all season, or best international game we've had in like 10 years of them doing this international series, right? The Colts are one of 3 teams in the NFL who have, 8 wins going into week 8. And it feels like it's like 2010 all over again when the Colts were really good and the Patriots were really good with the 2 guys, the big guys, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. You know what I mean? 8 wins going into week 10. And let's be real, they're looking like the best team in the NFL. The Colts are overall. The Falcons season is kind of spiraling despite like very obvious progress we've seen. They are a team that has they have beaten teams that we did not think the Falcons were capable of beating this season. Now, I personally thought they were going to be a playoff contender. That did not happen. There's nothing I can do about that. As of now, they are way out of the playoff picture just because of offensive issues overall. Once again, in this game overall, Bijan Robinson is like not a factor, which is always going to be a huge problem for pretty much anybody who personally watches Bijan Robinson and knows what he's capable of doing. The Falcons season is kind of, like I said, spiraling out of control. Hopefully Raheem Morris gets to keep his job. The Falcons have 29 sacks by 14 different players. 10 weeks into the season, the Falcons are tied for 5th in total sacks and are 3 away from being the 2nd place team in the league with sacks. 17 players in the history of the Falcons have had 10 or more sacks in a single season. 3 players on the Falcons right now have 4.5 sacks with 8 games left to play and all have a legitimate chance to get the 10 sacks, which is crazy. I finally did it. I've been talking about it all season. I finally went back and I looked at the Falcons history books. If the Falcons get 11 sacks in the next 8 games, they'll have 40 sacks in the season, and that'll be the 3rd most sacks in the history of the Falcons franchise. Like, as an organization, their best sack season ever was 1997 when they had 55. And that was almost 3.5 sacks per game, which is kind of crazy. But the Falcons' single season history record, 55 sacks. They get 40. They will literally be the best. They will be the 3rd best Falcons team in the history of the Falcons, and the best team in terms of sacks in like 20 years. Legitimately 20 years of the Falcons being able to play. Anyway, the Colts fumbled on the 3rd play of this game. They recover it. Jonathan Taylor gets the ball poked out from behind, and they recover the ball. I think they do lose yards on the recovery, though. A few plays later, the Colts are in the Falcons' red zone, and they're on a 4th and 2, and after Jesse Bates hits the shit out of Mo Cox, it forced the 4th and 2 situation here. The Falcons stop the Colts. They run a pitch motion they run halfback pitch to Jonathan Taylor, and the Falcons stop him. It's kind of crazy. The Falcons' first offensive possession is like so many of the possessions we've seen. The verge, the edge of massive success. And then it ends with Michael Penix getting blamed for stuff. Bijan gets a huge run on the first play. Kyle Pitts drops a dime from Michael Penix that he threw over the shoulder of his defensive back right into his hands. He drops it. And then Tyler Algier doesn't read one of the Colts blitzers, which I think is Cam Bynum. It was Cam Bynum. He doesn't read that one of the blitzers is coming from the right-hand side. And so he starts middle, and then he works his way to the left. And Cam Bynum runs in and hits Michael Penix completely unblocked. He's legit unblocked on this play, and this is like the 5th offensive play of the entire game, and it's just a straight-up sack that could have been a forced fumble, and Cam Bynum does pull up before he hits Michael Penix from behind, and is pretty nice about him, to be honest with you. Yeah. And also, by the way, yes, if you're familiar, Cam Bynum is that defensive back from the Vikings who did all the crazy celebrations. Yes, he did have a celebration ready for this sack that turned the ball over. He hits the Drew Hill background dancers moves when they're doing the Mario steps. And then the Colts social media account misidentified it as Get Jiggy With It by Will Smith. And then every black person on the planet was just pissed off in the comments. So, yeah, it was Drew Hill. It was Drew Hill doing the funny dance moves that everybody makes fun of now. But honestly, at the time, they were singing and doing like legitimate single hops that were like 3 feet off the ground while singing. Whatever. The Colts do score 2 plays later after they forced the turnover. So, yeah. The Falcons cut through the Colts on the following drive. They cut through the Colts like a hot knife through butter, and then they get a huge PI play that puts the ball at the 1-yard line. Shout out Darnell Mooney. Maybe the first positive play he's made all season. And the Falcons take a 7-6 lead after the Colts missed a PAT. The Colts respond immediately. Daniel Jones hits Alec Pierce, who honestly, kind of a strange world where Alec Pierce is not only a big play wide receiver for Anthony Richardson when he was a starting quarterback, but also for Daniel Jones. Something about that guy, man. He mossed 2 defensive backs in the end zone to get this touchdown catch, by the way. The pass was short, and Alec Pierce jumped so high that he was able to actually rip it out of the hands of the Falcons DBs. And the first 4 possessions of the game is more exciting than 90% of the international games that I've ever watched. In the history of the international series, just the first 4 possessions of Colts-Falcons is more exciting in terms of the drama, the defensive plays, the offense, than I've watched in 90% of the times that I woke up to watch a football game at 8 o'clock in the morning. Daniel Jones does finally make a mistake in this game, and at the top of the second quarter on a run out of the pocket, he gets stripped. But luckily, the Colts recover again somehow. So weird. But yeah, he's falling out of bounds, and somebody literally hits it so that it falls directly down the sideline and stays in bounds. They had James Pierce mic'd up. I'm sorry, it was Jalen Walker they had mic'd up, and he almost recovered it. And they had the camera zoomed in on him and everything. It was pretty crazy. The game ends. So anyway, oh, wow. I think, yeah, he finally makes a mistake. They do force the recovery. The following drive, this is when we see the Falcons show us an amazing understanding of the Colts defense overall. And it's one of the many times where you watch Michael Penix play. He looks amazing. Penix drives the Falcons 55 yards in 5 plays, and he throws another dime to Drake May perfectly over Sauce Gardner to get a touchdown. This game ends with an overtime loss to the Colts. In the first half, despite the score being 14-13, it felt like the Falcons were in absolute control of this game, vast majority of it, which is kind of a weird feeling for the back-to-back weeks where the Colts feel like they're kind of getting a little resistance, you know? They ran away with the first 8 weeks of the season, and now they're starting to play they've played some tough teams throughout the course of the season, but now they're playing high caliber teams like the Falcons, who have a really tough schedule but clearly play really well. Jesse Bates ends the first half of this game with another interception. He gets his second in 2 weeks. He got one last week as well, so it was pretty cool. The second half starts with and the onslaught from the Falcons continues to go. The first offensive drive almost ends with Kyle Pitts catching a touchdown. Instead, it ends up being a field goal, which is tough. The defense strips Daniel Jones twice, and they finally recover the second one on the Colts' following offensive drive. The Colts have 5 consecutive drives that all end in disaster in the middle of this game, and this is the room where the Falcons kind of start making some distance between them. But the Colts defense obviously is high quality. It's very good. It's been very good all season, in particular when it comes to getting pressure. And now with Sauce Gardner, their coverage is even better, and so they're getting more pressure than ever before. But yeah, they missed a field goal. They got a punt. They got an interception, and then a fumble, and then a turnover on downs. All 5 possessions in the middle of this game. Their O-line, the Colts O-line, was getting destroyed for so much of this game, and it was amazing that they were able to stay in this one overall. The final bad drive of the game for the Colts is literally the Falcons' crescendo on 4th and 2. They know what's going to happen. It's the same thing that happened early in the first half of this game. It's the same thing that happens every time the Colts need yards. It goes to one person, and it goes to the best offensive player in the NFL. They give the ball on a pitch. They had the Colts tight ends and a bunch on the left, and the Falcons beat this with only 2 linemen in a 3-point stance. Everybody else is in their 2 D tackles are in a 3-point stance. Everybody else is standing up near the line of scrimmage, and they run through it like they have practiced it 1,000,001 times as to how to get to Jonathan Taylor. And a DB runs in, and they literally grab Jonathan Taylor by the ankles, and then 2 more people run in and jump on top of him. They lose a yard on 4th and 2 inside their own red zone to force a turnover on downs. Last season, The 5th-round pick, J.D. Bertrand, blows up JT and catches him mid-air for a tackle for loss. J.T. Bertrand, he's the white linebacker, number 40 for the Falcons. Look out for him. He's been playing really good this season. I'm not going to lie. But he's the one who shoots in, and he destroys JT on this one. And the Falcons get the ball on their own 8-yard line. The fourth quarter starts with the Falcons up 17-13, and the Colts pressure starts heating up a little bit. They get 3 plays in a row with Michael Penix throwing the ball into the ground or into the bench. So they're starting to get a little angry. You know what I mean? They're getting a little testy. It's getting a little too close. The Colts turn up, and they realize to the outside is where the advantage lies. JT, Jonathan Taylor, with over 250 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. He starts killing them on the outside. The game stayed close, and the Colts refused to stop establishing the run, and it paid off later in this game. JT had 115 yards, wait for it, in the fourth quarter. In just the fourth quarter, he had a touchdown run for 83 yards down the left-hand sideline. The Falcons had so much trouble trying to figure out when to rush the passer and when to go out there and get Jonathan Taylor because most teams, when they're in the situation that the Colts are in, they stop running the ball, as opposed to the Colts, where their run game is so explosive, they can continue to run the ball. A lot of people can take some lessons from them. The Buffalo Bills. The TD that gave the Colts their first lead in this game in the first quarter, they were up. That touchdown, the 83-yard touchdown, gave the Colts their first lead in this game since the first quarter when they were up 6-0, and that was after the first drive when they scored a touchdown and missed the PAT. The Falcons get back to pounding the rock, and we finally get to see something that I've been wondering how long it's going to take. Bijan Robinson's been having a rough couple of weeks. A lot of teams have been keying in on him and focusing in on stopping him. Tyler Algier, before Bijan got there, was a 1,000-yard rusher. And finally, the Falcons are like, you know what? Maybe we focus on this guy. Maybe we let this guy do it. He gets 33 yards on a drive. He gets 33 yards and a touchdown in the fourth quarter in a key game like we just talked about. By the way, Drake London on the 2-point conversion breaks off Sauce Gardner so bad that he falls down on the release. So it's pretty crazy. Bijan didn't have too many explosive runs, but honestly, he did his best, and he looked a lot better than he has the last couple of weeks. The Colts' next drive has Daniel Jones set up a big-time run for a 10-yard gain, and then he flies into the Falcons' bench. He gets up, and all of a sudden, his mouth is bleeding from, hitting, I guess, I'm assuming his teeth cut into his lip, and that's why his mouth was bleeding. And it stays bleeding for the rest of this game. He's bleeding from the mouth. And the drive ends with another field goal for a 25-all tie with under 20 seconds on the clock. The Falcons were insane in this game on defense, man. They like I said, they have 5 possessions in a row where they created absolute disaster for the Colts. But the back half of this, when the Colts really clutched up, man, the Falcons get a drop from a wide-open Darnell Mooney while trying to get in the field goal range, and then all of a sudden they have to sit there and do something that looks a little bit familiar. This is exactly how their game versus the Patriots ended a week ago. The next play, Michael Penix is trying to avoid a sack because the pass protection doesn't pick him up. And in the process, he throws the ball into the ground and gets called for intentional grounding. This is literally the second time in a row in 2 weeks that the Falcons have been called for intentional grounding on what would become the final drive of the game. And they lose the down, and it turns the ball over. So they go into overtime. The Falcons don't have Drake London on this one. In their final 2 drives, they're focused on using Darnell Mooney like he's a number 1 wide receiver. And we've already talked about this before. Darnell Mooney was a huge part of why the Falcons got shut out versus the Panthers. And no shade to him. He's just, whatever the situation is with his shoulder and stuff like that, he's been brutal as a pass target, man. But yeah, essentially Michael Penix goes from being able to complete a ton of balls to people throughout the course of this game to nothing but incompletions from Darnell Mooney. The Colts finally break through, and you guessed it, it's Jonathan Taylor. The Colts run the ball 6 times on their 7 plays in the final drive of the game, and it ends with 34-yard run from Jonathan Taylor into the end zone, and more than likely into the hearts of many, many football fans in Berlin, as he could potentially end up being the ultra rare running back MVP for the NFL. The Colts continue their insane run. They bounce back from that ugly loss versus the Steelers. The Falcons scored their second most points of the year in their third one. Yeah, they scored the second most points they've scored all year. They're 3-6 with 8 games remaining, and they have an outside shot at the wild card. And when I say outside, I mean that's being generous. They need 10 wins, and at minimum, that's pretty tough, which means they can only lose one more game for the rest of the season. That's what happened this week in the NFL. I had a ton of fun talking about it. Hopefully you had a ton of fun listening about it. I had a ton of fun watching most of these games. The ones that I did not were in the snooze fest category. Everything else was pretty dope this week because we're starting to see how this whole thing unfolds. We're past the halfway point, and we still don't have like a real idea about who the best team in the NFL is. If you know who the best team in the NFL is, and I mean like legitimately, who do you think the number one team in the NFL is? Because it could be the Chiefs, it could be the Colts for a lot of people, it could be the Bills, it could be the Eagles, depending upon the day. Me personally, my money's on the Seahawks when it's all said and done, but only time will tell. I can't wait to see what happens in Week 11. I will say this. I'm really glad that I missed Thursday Night Football. Looked like it was pretty much a snooze fest over there as well. That will probably be coming up next week. On that note, I'm out of here. Make sure you stay hydrated, eat your vegetables, do all the cool stuff if you're going to be drinking this weekend or doing any other adult type things. Make sure you do it safely and make sure you you're not driving under the influence. Other than that, there's only one thing left to say. Go home, Roger.